how does faith and spirituality play into success and our wealth choice?
That's a great question. As a matter of fact, that's the third law of wealth. Believe in yourself when no one else will. We all have faith, but very few of us choose to exercise it. You know, probably the best example of that is Martin Luther King, Dr. King, when he said faith is taking the first step without even seeing the staircase.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's just a question, are you going to exercise your faith? And we all know about that maxim, you know, doubt and fear knocked on the door and faith answered. Okay? And the question that, or, you know, the metaphor that I like to use of faith is, you know, two roads diverge in the wood. I took the one less traveled by. You know, you are different, you are unique. Probably, you know, if I ask you to define success, you know, what would you tell me success is? No, if I ask you the opposite of success, what would be your answer?
Failure.
Yeah. Well, the opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is conformity. You'll never succeed conforming to the wishes, norms, and mores of others. Well, why do people conform? Well, that's a safety zone. Arguably, the worst place in the world you could ever be in your life is in your comfort zone. Is in your comfort zone. So we live in a world that rewards faith, that rewards being different and unique, that rewards differentiation. I mean, you take the word capitalism and write it on a piece of paper, capitalism. You take the Latin derivative of the word capitalism, caput, kaput. Well, what does kaput mean in Latin? It means head. Well, what's the one thing you must use in order to survive in a free and open society? You must use your head. So what in the world does that have to do with faith? The average individual in our society gets 4 ideas a year, Brandi. 4 a year.
4 ideas a year, Dad?
If they had the guts, the courage, the fortitude to chase their dream, would make them financially independent.
Wow.
Why don't they do that? The lack of faith. I was asked one time to list my 5 best business books. And one of them was Lewis Carroll's book, Alice in the Looking Glass. And I got a little pushback because I said, man, that's a children's book. That's like a bedtime story you read to your kids. It's almost like a nursery rhyme. I said, there's nothing childish about Alice in the Looking Glass. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, go ahead and read it. When Lewis Carroll wrote that book in 1869, he didn't write it as a children's book because he asked Alice 3 critical questions that all entrepreneurs and all would-be game changers and peak performers must answer at some point in their life. So there's Alice, and we know the looking glass is a mirror. Alice is walking and sees the looking glass and sees her image, and Lewis Carroll says, Alice, what do you see? And Alice is looking at it and blah, blah, blah. Then he asks Alice a second question. He says, Alice, do you see what you want to see, or do you see what the world wants you to see?
Yeah.
And then he asks Alice the third question. He says, Alice, are you willing to take the final step to create what you see so the whole world can see it? Now, what does that have to do today? Well, Lewis Carroll is describing Alice in the Looking Glass. But when I read that, I'm thinking of Jay-Z. Because when Jay-Z lived in the Marcy housing projects in New York, that little apartment that mother and father and everybody was living in, there was only like 2 or 3 windows in there, and one of the windows was in the kitchen, over a faucet, over a sink. And his mother would constantly say, why do you keep looking out that at the gangbangers and crackheads and those who just physical assaulted and all blah, blah. And Jay-Z, what did he say to his mother? I'm not looking at gangbangers and drug abusers. Mom, that's my future I'm looking at. Because he was willing to take the final step. You ain't got faith, you have nothing.
Yeah.
You have nothing. You have nothing. We're here to magnify the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's all the Bible is. The Bible, especially the New Testament, is nothing but a series of case studies of folks that have overcome obstacles, overcome challenges,
Yeah.
and after they did so, well, they magnify the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sooner or later, when are you going to magnify the Lord? When? Henry David Thoreau said, "Don't die with your music left in you." Well, who in the world was Henry David Thoreau, Dr. Kimbro? Well, he was Ralph Waldo Emerson's prize pupil. Okay? And as we know about Henry David Thoreau, he was incarcerated later on in his life because he refused to pay his income taxes because he didn't like the way that Native Americans were being treated, and he didn't like the way African Americans were being treated. He said, "I'm not paying taxes for this." So they threw him in jail. His teacher, Ralph Waldo Emerson, goes down to the jail to talk to his prize pupil. And he says to Ralph Waldo Emerson, he says, "Henry, what in the world are you doing in there?" And Henry David Thoreau looks out behind the prison's bars and says, "Dr. Emerson, what are you doing out there?" Come on, bro, you taught me. You should be in here with me. So we need faith. We need a strong faith. We need an enduring faith. We need faith that, man, at this particular juncture, and I can give you all the data, 44 million African Americans, 40% are non-banked or unbanked. Only 1 out of 3, actually less than 1 out of 3, any types of savings, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Come on, man, we got to ramp it up. We got to change the paradigm.
Yeah.
We've got to change the paradigm. And what you're doing is critical, taking these stories forward, because you never know. You never know. You're speaking to a different audience today, and we need these visual images. We need them desperately.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things, and I was just, when we were in India last week, I was having this conversation at dinner, and Jada, my producer, and I, we got asked a question, well, do you think that, you telling stories of Black people basically is that, do you feel like that's like a disservice, that you should be discussing all stories? And I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, well, we do discuss all stories, but I think it's imperative for us to talk about our stories, because if we don't, they will write us out of history and say we weren't here. They will say we didn't exist. They will twist the narrative and make it something that wasn't true. And so I know that it's important for us to talk about our own wealth choices, our stories of success, our stories of triumph. It's important. And so as a teacher, though, you are still a professor. What is exciting you about this new generation of creators?
I'm gonna answer that question in 1 second, but since you shared about telling our stories, that was the heart and soul of Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
See, Napoleon Hill was writing what became Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice. I should have brought in here with me, what was I thinking, and show you his last 100 pages.
Oh, wow.
Right off his Hamilton typewriter to my desk right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And on the cover of that little folder, Blacks Are Growing Rich. And arguably one of the biggest mistakes we make is that he was writing this book for Black America. And after reading those 100 pages, and I could see why W. Clement Stone contacted me, because all the profiles that Napoleon Hill had in those 100 pages, he never interviewed them. I had all the interviews.
Wow.
He profiled T.M. Alexander. He profiled A.G. Gaston. He profiled John Johnson. He profiled George Johnson. He profiled Charles Clinton Spaulding. Never interviewed any of them, but I had the interviews. So what I think Hill was trying to suggest, that Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice, wasn't meant for us. I'm glad that we read it. It was meant for all those who doubt us and say, give these people, they're worthy of opportunity. Look what they did with nothing to where they are right now. They, believe in these individuals. They are more than capable. They are equal to the task. They are equal to the challenge.
Yeah.
Because I get pushed back all the time. Why do we need a Black choice? And I'm getting this from folks who read the original.
Even in this day and time?
Even in this day and age. And I said, that's a
Really?
great question, but you need to ask Napoleon Hill. He was the one that started it.
Yeah.
And then ask W. Clement Stone, who held on to those 100 pages for 16 years. For 16 years. And he called, I just flown home. I had interviewed Earl Graves, publisher of Black Enterprise magazine. My wife said, your phone has been going off the hook. This guy keeps calling you every hour and blah, blah, blah. I told him that you're not here and blah, blah, blah. Please call him. And I couldn't reach him, but I did. I left a message. That was W. Clement Stone calling me. How he got my number, I will never know. You want to reach somebody, you'll reach them. You'll do whatever
You will find a
necessary.
way.
You
Yeah.
will find a way.
Yeah.
And so he called me up, and I returned the call, and I said, this is Dennis Kimbro, blah, 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 this, that, and everything. And then we finally hooked up the next morning, and he said, young man, I would like to meet you. I want you to come to Chicago and blah, 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 and everything. And I guess it was like a test, because he didn't give me money for hotel. He didn't give me money for, for airfare. So I told him, I said, well, how long are you going to take you to raise the money? I said, I'll be there in 10 days. I said, I can come up with it 10 days. So me and my wife flew out there. We rented a car, landed at O'Hare Airport, drove downtown, and this was November 3rd, 1986, and she waited in the car almost those 2 hours while I was in there. And when I left, he made that proposition to me. We want you to finish this book. And at that time, I was working on What Makes the Great Great. And I said I couldn't. And he said, why not? And I said, I'm working on a book of my own. And he said, if you got any sense, you'll push your book aside and finish this. And then so I went out and I said, okay. And my wife just, oh man, what did he say? What did he say? And I threw my briefcase in the back. And I had an attitude, and I said, what did he say? It didn't go well? I said, it went all right. Man, what did he say? And I said, man, he wants me to write this book. He said, well, didn't you tell him that you're already writing? I said, yeah, he didn't want to hear it, and blah, blah, blah. Let's go get something to eat. And so, Brandi, almost 3 months went by. I'm at home. I'm still working on my book. And my wife came down to my study, and she says, when are you going to start working on that other book? And I said, Pat, I'm not feeling it. He said, well, those folks back in Chicago think that you're working on this book. You need to tell them something. You need to tell them one way or another. I said, okay. So I wrote about 90 pages, overnighted it, sent it to the Napoleon Hill Foundation. They opened the envelope, and they had a team of 3 or 4 writers and editors and everything. They read it. They threw it in the trash. No problem. So this time, I wrote 125 pages, overnighted, sent it up to them. They read that, threw that in the trash. But this time I got a phone call from the executive director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, a gentleman by the name of Michael Ritt. And he said, Dennis, we received your work, your writings, blah, blah, blah. You're an excellent writer, but we want you to do us a favor. And I said, sure, if I can, tell me, what do you want me to do? They said, take your doctorate, take your PhD, put it on a shelf. You won't need it for this assignment. And I said, translate, what do you mean? It says, we want you to write this book as if you're writing a letter to a friend. Brandi, so glad I went through that. Why? It changed my writing style overnight. It changed it overnight. In other words, they wanted me to write a book that no matter where you were in your development, no matter your age, no matter if you picked up the book, read a passage, and then didn't pick it up for another 50 years, it was still right on time.
Yeah.
And so I did it. I sent it to them, and the rest is history. Now, you asked that question about mindset and about faith. That was one of the hallmarks of all these individuals. They were unbelievably passionate about what they were doing. You know, all the folks, Brandi, that we look up to, all the folks that we admire, all the folks that we hold in our heart with endearing attitudes and the like, at one point in their life, they were doubted.
Yeah.
At one point in their life, they were laughed at. They were scorned. Cynics and doubters came and blah, blah, blah. And what was the critical difference? And this goes back to Hill. They had a burning desire. Not a desire, a burning desire. What is a burning desire, Dr. Kim? A burning desire is an inner candle, an inner flame that cannot be extinguished.
Yeah.
We all got desires. All right? I got a desire. Man, I was looking at my clock. Man, I got to go get me another suit, blah, blah, blah. That's a desire. Do I want, get an upgrade on one of these bathrooms? We all got, I got a desire. My daughter said, Dad, I hope you got a desire for a new car. You held on to that car a little bit too long. Hush, child. We all got 50 million desires.
Yeah.
But a burning desire, like I said, is an inner candle, an inner flame that cannot be extinguished. And though the worst may come before you, doubters may come, cynics may come, critics may come, but you will use their doubt, you will use their criticism to propel you forward. I have seen it over and over again.
Hey Vault family, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this clip, make sure to check out our full interview on our channel at Vault Empowers Talks. We don't just scratch the surface, we dive deep into the lives of some of the world's most influential leaders and change makers. Don't forget to like, to comment, and be sure to subscribe for more inspiring conversations. See you next time.